So she started out the meeting. Now, they only went.
No.
So public comment. Do we have public comment? Steve?
My name is Steve Steyer. I live in Empire Township. And I mentioned this once before, but I'd like to suggest that the Park Rec Commission take a look at your mission statement. Mission statement now says that you only provide recreational opportunities for the citizens of the county. I think there are a lot more beneficial things that can be done in the parks besides that. For instance, education or entertainment. It could be a broader use than just recreation. So if you have a chance to look at your mission statement and broaden that. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on. The agenda, any additions or deletions?
Move to,
Oh,
Go ahead, Melinda.
just a quick question. I'm sorry to see your letter that you are leaving the board. Does this board have to add, do we have to accept it, or if we vote it down today, do you stay on the board? There's a,
That's not my anticipation, no.
what do we, I
well-
don't think we have to do anything. I just want to make sure before we approve the agenda.
Well, I will be bringing up, at that point, I guess getting ahead of it here, but the need perhaps of this group to discuss replacing my position
Okay.
and that sort of thing before the January meeting. I mean, this is your last get-together prior to January.
So do you want to put it on the agenda?
Well, it's number
I think
5.
It is on the agenda.
Where is it?
Oh,
Oh, the potential appointment? Yes, but that's not oh, unless it does fall under that. Do we don't technically have to accept the letter of resignation, do we? Or do we? Okay, all right, that was my question. So,
Got it.
thank you. All right.
And I also have one other question before we settle the agenda. Right at the beginning of the meeting, this was passed out, which is the request for proposal.
Seriously, just got that in the last 45 minutes.
Okay, so
So I don't think you really need to add it to the agenda. I passed it out for review. You've already said that you're willing to go through the RFP process, so at this point, it's just information only.
okay.
Okay.
I did notice was a December 6th on-site
Yes.
walkthrough that
Yes, you have to adjust the timetable. However, that document is for everyone to review, and we'll work out the bugs so that we can get it posted even as early as Friday.
You okay, Charlie?
That's it.
Okay. Don?
move to accept the agenda as presented.
Well, Don, I think has,
I have one.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
on action item number 4, on the risk management assessment, actually 2 things we're supposed to review each month. One is the winter activity schedule, in the winter, obviously, and the other is the risk management assessment of each of the different parks. So there's 2 things from the last month that John actually mentioned that we should look at.
So we're going to add the assessment along with the winter activity.
Exactly.
Okay.
Move to accept the agenda as amended.
Support?
any further discussion? So we'll add that then under number 4, in discussion of the risk management issues.
We'll need to vote.
Okay, all in favor of that
Aye.
addition? Any addition? Okay. So we will add that as number 4. Moving on then, approval of minutes.
I would move to approve the minutes of November 1st, 2023, as presented.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion further? All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion passes. So minutes are approved. Financials. Scott, anything to report in particular?
Financials were at 61% of the budget. There's a couple outstanding things. The concrete and Veronica and the electrical work at Old South.
Concrete's been poured? Excellent.
Concrete at Old Settlers, I heard that.
Veronica
Oh,
Valley?
Veronica Valley, that's for the,
And the electrical for the gazebo.
oh, and the electrical at, and that's been done, you said?
They were there today.
Yay,
Assuming it's done.
okay. So we can hang some Christmas lights this year? Could we hang some Christmas lights this year? Celebrate? Okay, yay. So those have not been billed, correct, yet?
Actually, I have a question on that because we have an invoice that was paid to the Concrete Service Inc. for $4,800.
Oh, I didn't see.
Okay,
So
good.
that's already been paid. Okay.
And so it will just be the electrical. So our capital outlay, well, this was still at 55, but hadn't we spent something out of there before?
The expenditures so far have gone against that items under 4,000. You'll notice there's some items.
We're over by 700. Okay, so that will be adjusted. I see what you're saying now. Okay, so so the concrete pad, this is as of November 30th, so that's not in this number then, correct? When was your invoice?
No, the concrete is in this number.
Oh, it is in here. Okay, so it was invoiced before November 30th? Okay, so that is just the electrical. So we're going to have a good portion to roll over then, of the 55.
Yeah, the electrical was 27,
Okay,
24/7.
24/7, 2,400 and $7. Okay.
So-
Okay, that's great.
What about the final payment to Gosling?
I saw Gosling in here, I don't know if that's the final.
I don't think it is. I think we're close to paying the final. It's
That's what I-
contingent on one more visit, I think.
Yeah,
$500.
yeah, so there's,
A $500 payment? Okay.
Because whatever you review and we determine, we'll finalize the plan.
and that's probably 1,500 or
So
2,500.
still, that's say 3,000, so it's around 5,200 or 52,000, potentially. Good.
That's the figure you're seeing. I was going to ask you this, that's going to roll over?
Yeah, probably a budget amendment in January.
It's a done deal.
It's a done deal? Let's just go with that, yeah,
Totally,
done
it's a
deal.
We just had a barn use committee meeting before this, and this committee had approved $300, right, Steve? For a composting sign at Miles Kimberly Park. Because our graphic artist is still working on it, we're not going to have that done in the end of this calendar year. Is that something that can be carried over? Is that just regular policy, or how does that work when you, I don't know the rules.
Typically, it's cash flow,
But it,
cash flow.
I
If
don't-
it gets done, it gets paid, billed, and it gets paid for.
but if it doesn't get done within 2023, will this
It would-
committee still
it would have to
support?
be billed
Oh,
next
yeah, because
year,
it's approved,
and
right?
then,
Okay, there's no,
The bill would come through, the approval to do it is okay. but-
okay, so we're still,
The approval would go forward.
Right, so you don't have to start
But
from
it will go
scratch.
against
It would
next
be
year's
billed
budget.
on next year's budget.
Right.
it was just 300, but, thank you.
Any other questions on financials? Scott, the only thing that came to my mind, which isn't money, are the porta potties going to be moved this year? I mean, before this winter?
Probably not.
Oh, okay. Okay. Moving on to financials, or on to playground discussion.
Do we move
Yeah,
to?
we need a motion to approve the financials.
Oh, thank you.
I'll move it.
I'll support it.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Now, who's taking the lead on your playground discussion?
I am. I sent out some information to the committee and to Laurel. It's essentially a document from a provider of engineered wood fiber. That's what the business they're really in. But it was actually a very good article about the types of surfaces that you can put in a playground, the factors you should take into account when you're determining which one you want to use. So I found it to be very informative. So going forward, now, each of the parks in our MMA, MMRMA assessment have our playgrounds dinged as far essentially not having adequate fall protection. So we're going to all be looking at doing something. It can be augmenting the existing materials or replacing the existing materials with something else. No decisions have been made as far as what we're going to do. I plan to call a meeting in February of the Old Settlers Committee to go over and get a consensus of what we want to do for the Old Settlers Playground. And you're raising your hand. So anyway, I thought everybody would be interested in this information and should have it. Again, the company that I sent, who provided the information is in the engineered wood fiber business. So it's kind of slanted a little bit towards them. But again, you can read through it and see what you think about it.
You're not looking for specific action today?
No,
This is, okay.
it was just information.
I measured all the playground equipment. We would need a little over 900 yards of engineered fiber.
For
At what
both
depth?
parks? Both parks? All parks.
At what depth?
But-
A foot?
All parks, yeah.
1 foot?
Okay, smile,
One.
Kimberly.
And that ends up around a little over $11,000,
11,000.
not including trucking.
That was 900 square yards?
Ish.
All right, and that extends to at least 6 feet beyond any piece of equipment. And at Old Settlers, the 24 feet from the swing,
Height and width,
front and back.
6 foot and all that.
Okay. And do you have a breakdown by park? So you can send me what the breakdown is just for Old Settlers? I asked you another question, what the maximum height of the tallest piece of equipment is at Old Settlers?
I can't answer that because I don't know what they would consider the swing.
Yeah, it's got to be 14.
Well, I wouldn't expect any kid to climb to the top of the swing, but.
Oh, yeah.
I know, I know. Okay, so that's 12 feet.
10 feet?
That's like 12 feet.
I think it's
Which
10.
would increase, for any one of these surfaces, it increases the depth you
Yeah,
need
maybe.
for fall protection.
I don't know, I've been on swings pretty high.
Well, I've gone pretty high on a
Yeah,
swing myself,
yeah.
but I've never gotten to the top of the
And-
bar.
Well, who hasn't shimmied to the top of the bar, right?
Well, they make baffles for bird feeders, and you make baffles for sunsets.
For the kids.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments regarding the information I sent out on playground surfaces?
My
Okay.
comment would be we're raising a soft generation because no more swing sets over the asphalt like we had when we were kids, huh?
Yeah, we had asphalt and we had a little sprinklers thing in the middle, sprinkler pole in the middle of it for the summertime.
Then they go and play football.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Baseball, football.
Without a foot cushion, that's next.
Well, some of that discussion certainly falls under the next item.
Right.
That is risk assessment. I must say, we did not have a Veronica Valley committee meeting since the last commission meeting. I've lost track of time. I don't think I was at the last commission meeting. So I don't know where we're at on that discussion at this time. But certainly that is something each committee has to look at, is the results of the risk assessment at each park. I know at Veronica, it's a ladder to get out of the pond and additional boards on the railing of the big bridge. Well, it may have been more than all bridges, yeah. We have more than a 4-inch gap between each board, horizontal railing. Those spaces have to be decreased. So I know that sort of thing is there. For Veronica, certainly this pad underneath the playground equipment is another discussion that another part of that discussion. That's what I have to say about risk assessment at the moment.
So we did approve the ladder last month, didn't we? But it hasn't been done yet, right? So that will roll into '24. Okay.
I mean, on Old Settlers, the items I can think of at the moment, the monkey flower platform, there's boards on the lakes facing side, there's boards on the back side of it, but there's a side panel that's got wires and no boards on it, so some kid could get his head stuck in there if he puts his head through the wires. So we are gonna have to add the boards on that side to make that safe. The other thing was, the stairs are getting slippery because they need to be power washed or cleaned or something. And there's also some low-hanging branches from trees that are starting to crowd in on the stairs, which need to be trimmed out. And I think we've decided to do that in the spring, when we essentially putting the dock in and all that stuff. We can decide if we're gonna power wash with water only, the stairs and the monkey flower platform, so we don't put contaminants down into the monkey flowers. There was an issue regarding the gazebo. This request for a proposal is going to go out, which essentially will clear up and resolve all the issues with the gazebo. We now have restored the electrical service to the gazebo. That should be done this week, right? And that's pretty much, and the playground surface was the major issue in the report, and we're starting to address that.
And we just had that little teeny issue with the dock, the little gap between.
Right, the gap.
The gap, okay, which is not a big thing.
We need to come up with a solution so that we don't have a gap between the dock and the lakefront surface.
Right. All right.
Miles Kimmerly is the biggest offender here. Six years ago, they did an assessment in 2017, and they listed several things to be done. And three of the things are prominent. They still exist, and nothing's been done with them. They're minor things in a sense, but a hot coal container was one of them. And in 6 years, we've not addressed that. Liability release forms for soccer and baseball, I don't think we have that yet. They listed it again, so we haven't done that in 6 years. And the other is age-appropriate signage in the park for different equipment that we have out there. What age should we have? And I don't think,
That is on there.
that is?
Yeah.
We do have that.
The last one,
Okay,
yeah.
that's one we have. They listed it again, though.
Stickers.
Okay, well, they listed it again. So those three things, there's three other things that Miles Kimmerly is deficient on. Splintered wood tables for the picnic tables, some of the equipment with the getting through some of the railings and stuff. And one other one. The repair of the playground equipment, yeah, we talked about that. That's on there. That wasn't there before. But, the bottom line is we get these risk assessments and we're not doing as much as we should to support some of the safety issues that they do address. And maybe some of it is not as important as we think it should be. We should make a statement about that and, go back and talk about it. We shouldn't just ignore it, because it's been ignored for a while.
The playground, that company's obsolete, or it's gone out of business, so we can't find it.
Yeah. So then we have to think about replacing,
Needs to be replaced.
maybe duct tape works, who knows?
Which unit? Is that the,
Slide understand all that.
As far as,
Really?
you want to talk about winter activities?
Can I, just one
Yeah.
more? At our executive committee, Board of Commissioners Committee, we did talk about minimizing risk and applying for grants. Do any of these things, maybe Administrator Allen knows the answer to that, are any of the activities that they want us to do applicable to writing a grant to help us do them?
I think that's appropriate. There are some of these that could be submitted as a
Risk
avoidance grant, and they offer grants, and they have, several $1 million. It's just a matter of making an application, so I think that's a viable option for some of these.
Yeah, because it seems like we always come to this point and we talk about, well, I should say, I've only been on it for a year, but we get to a point and then we don't do anything. And it seems usually because of funds, right? So if we kind of got a group together to look specifically at what we thought might apply and then go for it, I mean, I'd be willing to work on that with somebody. I'm sorry, not
Well, out of that, let me ask Deb, who would, you said there are grants available from who?
From MMRMA, from the actual
I see.
company that we contract with to manage our insurance and risk management. So they also offer grants. And they range in variety. I'd say probably an average grant would be somewhere between maybe 5 to 10,000. But you can do multiple grants, there's no limit. So some of these items might make very good sense. See, well, as I end up, some information.
I'm leaving at the end of the month, so it's important that you know. I handle the MMRME aspect for the county, and one thing when it comes to the grant process, it doesn't seem like it falls under the criteria. If you reach out to the person that manages that program, they will bring it before the committee if it's not listed, and they will still deliberate whether it's a viable project.
It's not a complicated application.
No.
So
Do you know if that type of grant, could it be projects from all three parks or two of the three? So a variety of projects, not all in the same location. Okay.
They review the submissions on a quarterly basis, and I can get you that information on their timetable.
I think
Oh, the granting timetable?
Yeah.
I see.
I think that would be wonderful, at least to try. And I'm willing to work with maybe staff or with a subcommittee of the subcommittee or whatever to look into it.
So were you still talking about the MMRMA?
Yeah, looking at those grants.
He's encouraged us in the past. It doesn't hurt to apply for as many as you'd like, and they're happy to receive them. They'll give us what they can, so I'd say absolutely go for it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe the chipping alone, if they would give us all the
Totally.
chips. Would be.
Or just those railings, I mean, some of those things that you mentioned seem risk assessment or, yeah.
I would think that the railings on the bridges, they would consider maintenance.
No, but it's risk prevention. What's the word again?
Yes,
Risk avoidance.
but I do think they would consider that maintenance that we, the county, ought to be doing.
Well, I
Whereas a
mentioned-
new
They may with chips,
ladder,
too.
the
Yeah.
large upgrade, because of the cost of it and the scale of it, of all the playground underlayment, I would think might fit. Now, that's just my opinion from some past work on grant application. But in any case, that's something that I think the commission's going to need to look at is,
News for
Worth
me,
asking.
I didn't even realize these existed until they were just brought up.
yeah, I didn't realize, I had never heard of this, that they offered grants. So that does seem like a direction to move, because some of this,
Which kind of brings up the subject of having a grant writer in the county to who knows about all these various types of grants, who you can come to and say, hey, we got this project, is there a grant available?
and many grant applications are not simple. They're very time consuming, and it helps to have
This one's simple enough.
an inside head in the county helping with that.
So do we need a motion or do we need any action or any?
Well, we need to discuss winter activity and
Okay.
in terms of that
Okay.
that agenda item, but I think we've made the point clear that each of the committees needs to come up with its list of what it can do, wants to do, and obviously some estimate of cost is going to be helpful. So that as we get to the spring season, some of that planning can really start getting nailed down. So we don't always just ignore it, Don, and let it slip by. Winter activities.
Aren't there some paperwork, isn't there paperwork that the soccer program provides us for their program?
The only thing that we've done for agreements on a regular basis are the cross-country events with St. Mary's School at Monica. We've done agreements for Old Settlers Park for musical events. I don't recall doing anything for Miles.
Baseball or soccer, yeah.
So the soccer that goes on, not by our residents and just pickup games, but any of that organized effort, outside groups, if they're the ones coming in, have not had to provide the
Why sponsor soccer?
Soccer.
In the recommendations, they seem to mention any soccer game, any baseball games, that's organized, and we should have a liability release form. Maybe it's overkill, I don't know. That's what the recommendation is.
Well, I did reach out to council after the last meeting, and I did get something from Tim. So I do have something.
Mhm. And I think you also went to legal counsel about us not having any formal thing between the garden club and about the chapel usage.
My Christmas present to you was to not discuss that in December. We can discuss still in January, because it's a little complicated.
Okay. Well, before you leave, I will need to know who the contact is.
The thing is, a lot of this stuff, it's a dormant issue until the weather is nicer and people want to actually have the wedding on site, and that's probably going to be a discussion about maybe it's time to get out of that. So whatever you determine, you would pass on the board to review and potential decision. But I do have that documentation.
Don, did you want to lead off on
I sure can.
winter activities?
Okay, just first to the other one first a little bit. They don't mention pickleball, and they don't mention volleyball, so they don't have to get a permit for those maybe. So next month, maybe, who knows? Anyway, this winter activity forum model guidelines is very inclusive, very good. It covers everything. If you did everything on there, it'd be amazing. So you have to pick and choose. But for Miles Kimberly anyway, we do have a sledding hill, right, Scott? Is that being used for sledding at all?
It's not marked as a sledding hill.
Not marked. They used to sled there, but if it is, they have to
There's
upgrade
the
the
hill
mark.
they
They sled
sled
there, but it's not a sledding hill.
Anyway, we do sledding there, or maybe not. The ice rink potential, we don't have an ice rink yet, but if we did, those recommendations would apply. And the only other one that I came up with is cross-country skiing. There should be appropriate signage for that, and safety issues that are discussed in here very extensively. That's all I have then.
Do people sled at Miles Kimberly? Not that, we don't have a sledding hill, but do people go up some rise and?
You just slide on the side.
There's a hill there.
There's a hill we can slide on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you all are done with that, we'll move on to item 5. As you've seen, I'm resigning my position here on the Parks Commission, effective at the end of this meeting. I've had already talked with John Popa here and John Walter about this. I do wish to stay supportive of the parks and specifically Veronica, because that's where I've had the job. I'm volunteering right here, and I've already said this to the other committee meeting members. I'll run point on one of the big issues that Veronica faces as we go into next spring and summer. But as a volunteer, I will still run point on the weed management issue. If you recall, we went through some learning curve and discussion this past summer, and we had thought in the spring that, geez, given the expense and what we want to do, how the kind of ponds we want to maintain, the purpose, primarily for the fishing, that we thought we could manage the weeds perhaps ourselves. I mean, the committee, the Parks Commission, the county. I think we learned adequately, at least I did, from all the digging into that it was a time-consuming prospect, and probably not a whole lot cheaper by the time we went through two different permitting processes, and one of those required some class time and a test for somebody, whether it was Scott, myself, someone representing the county officially was going to have to go through for that permit. So the decision was, no, this is not going to make sense. We need to contract out for this service as we've done before. We need the service to do what we want and do it better than what we did before. But I will continue to be involved in that specific issue. It's one of the keys that's going to face the Veronica Committee as we head into next season. Because I know it's natural. The reason I'm doing this is I'm facing two health issues that I hadn't known about before. Neither is threatening in any way, but it's a pain in the neck. And it's caused me to just reassess my own priorities at this point. But I'll still be involved. I will be connecting directly with the Veronica Committee and still continuing on that one piece. Is going to take some time, and I have more background than the other committee members. So as we go into the next season, I will continue that work.
Great.
Now, you may want to discuss then, as you finish up this year, look into the January meeting, some about applicants, your own nomination for replacing my position. And then I guess I'll turn this.
Your term was going to be up when?
If I could add, Dave's term expires at the end of next year. Because the county board is meeting to finalize their appointments for this
Yes.
coming cycle, I thought it would be advantageous for you to discuss those potential recommendations. If you look at your page 40 through 53, I've included a few, the only ones that we have right now that are left for potential appointment. One's Peter Dune, one's Gary Sharp, who currently sits on solid waste, as well as Harry Stephens, who is not appointed to the board. However, he has been recommended for approval to the construction committee. So you have the opportunity to provide a recommendation to the board based on these three applicants. And then you'll be fully staffed going into next year.
Belinda?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Laurel, for that. You just covered it, what I was going to cover. So I would move to recommend to the Parks and Recreation Commission to appoint, I recommend that the Parks and Recreation Commission recommend to the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners that they appoint Keith Badoon to the Leelanau County Parks and Recreation Commission for a partial term expiring July 31, 2024.
I didn't hear who.
Keith
Mr.
Badoon.
Badoon. He's the first one.
Sorry?
Keith Badoon.
Did I, no, December. I just might have not have been. December 31, 2024.
What's that?
Is there a second?
Who is it that you're nominating?
The first is for Keith Badoo.
Oh, I
Would be
see.
page 42 of the packet.
Has he been contacted? Because this was 11/28 of 22, so just more recently?
You can have a second before. we-
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Is there a second?
Nobody knows him.
Nobody.
Can you say something about him?
Yes. Um, Keith has been a regular attendee at our Parks and Recreation Commissions. He spoke publicly about his desire to serve on a board. He hasn't yet had an opportunity to serve on any of our boards. And as I said, Laurel kind of covered it. He's the only one who hasn't had an opportunity to serve. Carrie Sharp has served on, as she states herself, and I think is presently seated on Solid Waste Council for us. Yep, does a fantastic job. And we did move forward to Tuesday night to appoint Harry Steffens to, I believe it's Construction Codes Board of Appeals. That's his talent. So I know Keith, and he'll do a really good job for us.
You say he's been to our meetings here?
He's been to Leelanau County Board of Commission meetings.
Oh, not Park and Recreation.
And there was some confusion of that yesterday, but that's not a requirement of any board that an applicant has to sit in the audience and be a part of those meetings before they are appointed. That is not a requirement.
What is the SWC board?
Solid Waste Council.
Okay.
It's basically recycling.
Still need a second.
Are you all feeling that you need more time to look at the range of applicants before you can vote on such a thing? John?
Keith may be good, but I just wonder if we should advertise again to the public. Some of these applications are old, and if the public out there, either through an ad or something, knows that we are looking and to describe what we're looking for, we're gonna need some skills, and Keith might have it.
He does. He does. And the board.
But I would still like to see more applicants.
Well, we can, but the county board has made it clear that they will take preference of an application that's been in on time ahead of another. So if we have a vacancy, it's our obligation to appoint someone.
We are currently looking, what is there, 3 different people in here?
Yes.
I don't know any of these people personally. Carrie Ann already has served she's serving on the Solid Waste Council, or has been.
Right.
You really shouldn't be doing too much discussion unless you have a second. So
Okay.
for the sake
Well,
of discussion, can someone second?
I'll make that second for that reason, yes. So we have a motion from Melinda to appoint Keith Bodun, if I have that correctly.
Badun, I believe it's Badun, yeah.
And I have seconded, so we're now at discussion. I would think one thing, my own experience has been that if you can find an applicant who can bring a definable skill set to the group, it really helps. John Walter's been so good to several of the parks, not just Veronica, on my committee, with his willingness to do some architectural work. Don's had some organizational experience, et cetera, that he's brought to the board. As I've seen it, it's been really good. Charlie knows more about finance than the rest of us put together. Those kinds of skill sets can really make a difference to a committee where we only have, in effect, one employee, Scott. And so any one of us who has a good idea of something that has to be done at the park, they need to do it themselves, and it helps if they have a skill set. This is just an observation on my part. those kinds of members that have a defined skill set that applies. It's really helpful. Any other
I know you can't see.
Yeah.
Just one second. His references of Bill and Laura, those are two high-performance people, and if he uses them as a reference, that impresses me.
Well, without further discussion, then we're at a point of voting on Melinda's motion that I seconded, that this body recommend to the full county commission Mr. Bowdoin's name for replacement of my position. So you're all clear on what Melinda's motion is? Any question on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have 2 ayes, all opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you need a roll call?
No, you don't.
Steve.
I recommend that we move this forward to the County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday night to make an appointment to our board.
That was your first proposal?
Nope, I just moved this issue forward to Tuesday night.
To a different body, though. This is the commission. This is
That's
the Parks
correct,
and Rec.
but this is only recommendation. Board of Commissioners has a final say.
You could do a roll call.
Let's do a roll call vote first on Melinda's motion.
On the first one?
Ms.
Or the one
Lautner?
she just did?
Yes,
Gotta be second.
There's only
Mr.
one
Ferrick?
motion.
Okay.
Mr. Ferrick?
Given what she just said, I will vote for him.
Well, now I'm not sure what motion we're voting on.
Yeah.
We've got two going here.
Steve asked for a roll call motion on appointing Keith Badoon.
On our recommending the appointment of Keith Badoon.
Yes.
Your first,
Yes.
your first motion.
That's what Steve asked for.
That's correct. And that's what I asked for, is a roll call on that motion.
And I said, given what she has said, I will vote for him.
Well, the roll call comes from Lori.
Okay, you're right.
All right,
Oh,
let's
yeah.
start again. Ms. Lautner?
Yes,
Mr. Ferrick?
Yes.
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Mr. Godbout?
No.
Ms. Ross?
No.
Mr. Popa?
Yes.
And Mr. Barron?
I'll vote no.
4-3?
4-3 negative, or positive. Okay. So this recommendation will be carried to the full Board of Commissioners.
Keep in mind, for all those with any kind of concerns, this is a partial term. So it will end at the end of next year. And if you're not happy, and you get to the point of recommending a member person,
Exactly right.
you can change. And we do advertise for this.
great. And I'm, I'm a little concerned too, that we have somebody who's passionate about serving on a board. And my understanding for Parks and Recreation in the past is just that you have a passion for Parks and Recreation. Are we straying from that? Are we now going to do things like interview people on what talents they can bring to the board? Because we haven't ever done that. All that we request of them is they have and passion's a little strong, we just, an interest in serving on a board. And Parks and Recreation doesn't ask for a division, say, solid waste council category. So solid waste council has categories.
Planning has categories.
Bingo, planning has categories. Steve's here because he is our drain commissioner. John's here, he sits on road commission, et cetera. Beyond, and Cam and I are here as commissioners. Beyond that, you have to have an interest in serving on parks.
My vote is based on, I read the material that I have for the 3 candidates in front of me, and my preferred candidate is actually Carrie Ann Sharp.
Yes.
That's why I voted no on Mr. Badoon.
Oh, and if I wasn't clear, the board's policy is that if they're already serving, they won't be appointed because we will allow someone else who has not had an opportunity to serve first. before they'll go on a second board.
From these written words, though, there's no passion there. I mean, I know you must know this gentleman, but we don't know him, so that's what we're going on, what he
Interest.
wrote. So
I
it's
said
not-
passion was interest.
No, you said passion, so I'm just,
Well,
yeah.
I did
It's
say.
just, yeah, we'll see.
Well, and my comments about a skill set, I think is the phrase I used. I offer that only as an observation.
Get it?
Is there input into what questions or categories would be on Parks and Recs?
We don't currently list categories. And I'd have to review the bylaws to see if that's something that, if you're interested in doing, and you probably go through council, that is everyone's desire.
Should we have children? Should we have grandchildren? How many, what months out of the year do we visit the parks? What months of the year do we use the parks? Have we been to Kids Fish Day? Have we taken our grandchildren to Kids Fish Day? How many of our grandchildren have we taken to Kids Fish
Township
Day?
representation. How do we
Township
have
representation.
Township representation.
Do you cross-country ski? Do you downhill ski? Do you ice skate? Have you ever built an ice skating rink? We open it up.
So I will prepare a late edition request for the board and send it out to them for next week with your recommendation.
I think I'm going to turn this to Administrator Deb Allen right now for some comments that plug into this discussion. And your look ahead at organization for next year. Deb?
Sure. So I just wanted to first come and, thank you, Laura, come before the Parks and Rec Commission and address the fact that because of Laurel's departure and some other structural changes in terms of staffing that we're making here at the county, we currently have a vacancy within the Planning Commission in terms of the planning director, I should say. And so we're looking at a little bit of restructuring for that. Parks and Rec is a planning feature. There's a plan that needs to be compiled for Parks and Rec. And so I wanted to propose to this group that we'd like to move forward with moving Parks and Rec into the planning department so that there is administrative support ongoing for the Parks and Rec committee. And so as we look to hire an individual, we have interviews set for tomorrow. We have an external candidate and we have an internal candidate. Gail Meyer is the senior planning director for our current planning department. And she is a candidate for the position. I've asked her to attend today. And we will move forward with discussions. I've had a conversation with the chair of the Parks and Rec Committee and invited Casey to be part of the interview process for tomorrow in light of this. And he's not available, obviously. And so I was encouraged to reach out to Commissioner Lautner, who has agreed to sit in on that interview process for tomorrow. So we've narrowed the field down to 2 candidates. And going forward, we would like to provide administrative support to the Parks and Rec through the planning department. And that's what I wanted to bring forward to you today.
I mean, currently that planning director has the planning commission, the solid waste council, the one,
Sorry, Steve, that's yours.
Brownfield, land bank.
brownfield,
Land bank.
land bank, and something to do with water,
Clean water.
clean water.
There is clean water and there's housing, but those, so from that perspective, but there are 3 staff that would be in the planning department. So it would not just be one individual, there would be a team approach in terms of the planning secretary would be assisting perhaps with minutes, but Lori's been doing an amazing job, so there isn't any immediate initiative for that.
I mean, Laurel
So-
is my go-to resource right now for process
Can
questions.
we hold the, well, Deb, where did this come from? Because did I miss something? Has Board of Commissioners voted to put this under planning?
My understanding is that is, we can certainly discuss that. It is a recommendation that has
Up
been
by-
made, from the standpoint that this is a planning feature.
Okay, who made
And
that
as Well,
recommendation?
as administrator, this is a planning function.
Okay, so because we have had discussions about, because we raised the executive assistant position that Laurel is vacating up $9,000. And part of that discussion and verification, and that's the wrong word too, I mean, struggling with words, justification was that she does more work. We've been paying a stipend for that more work, but we're going to raise her up, that position, he, she, up 9,000. That Parks and, to help cover Parks and Rec. There was that discussion. So no decision by the Board of Commissioners has been made. And I think Charles is onto something. I think it's a lot to load either a senior planner in a brand-new planning position or a brand-new planner that's coming into Leelanau County. Hopefully, we're going to have some a smooth transition with minutes, being real familiar with who we are and what we do. But as far as the whole thing of that, everything Laurel has done for us as far as, you know, getting us on the agenda, making sure our motions are in place, making sure we have everything that we need for paperwork, et cetera. We've got, of course, Scott, that hopefully is going to stay and continue to give us that smooth transition. I think this is premature, and I won't recommend putting it on a new planner. I can't do that.
Well, like I said, there are 3 staff in the planning department. This is a planning function, because as I had served on committees before too, and elected official previously, that's not the role right now, but Parks and Rec has to complete a plan. That's part of planning, so perhaps this should have been in that department previously, but it hasn't been the case. So now that we have an opportunity for transition.
And
there's an
remonumentation
opportunity to
too.
make these Pardon?
Remonumentation.
Remonumentation.
That's another function our planner has been handling.
And so, I've had conversations with the staff. They're aware of this. We're open to discussion. I think that tomorrow when we look at these job applicants, we'll be having this conversation in terms of what is their level of expertise, what is their level of involvement. 2 things that we know for sure. Laurel will not be here after the end of this month, so we have to come up with a plan. We don't know if her position will be filled. We have a candidate, but we don't know what that role will entail. The decision to increase the pay, as Commissioner Lautner had said, was made before Laurel had announced her resignation. So we necessarily can't hold a position to something that we don't know if that person has that skill set. So we're looking at a variety of different opportunities on how we can move forward in an organized fashion in a way that makes sense. And so these were some of the recommendations that I'd like to bring forward, and that's part of the reason why we included Casey in the process, which now Commissioner Lautner will be involved in that. And then the other component of this, obviously, will be, like I said, the minutes. And right now, that decision is to include Lori in that, and we'll see how that transition goes.
I mean, my only comments really, I was trying to get it, first seek to understand, then take action after you have understanding, right?
Totally.
So essentially, if you're going to just fold Laurel's role into the planning department, and there's currently 3 people on staff, and they are handling the workload that you have, and you're not finding that someone just sitting around not doing anything, then you're going to need to augment the staff in planning to pick up the load that Laurel is vacating. Okay, that's my point.
We've talked to planning staff, and they have said that they can handle doing more, but obviously they're down 1 person right now. So until we figure out what the structure is going to be and how things are going to evolve, if the senior planner is going to move into the director position, and we obviously need to hire an individual that would be the senior planner, or moving to assistant planner, something of that nature. So there's a little bit of unknown yet, but I at least wanted this group to know that with Laurel's departure, there is a plan that is being discussed. It has not been fully implemented, but we are discussing the plan to see how this may evolve.
John?
I appreciate this thinking that you're putting into this. Is this on?
Yes, yes.
I can't hear. But what you're saying, the administrative support for Parks and Rec is going to come from the planning department. And I know you pointed there and whatever. So if we have something, we got to go to the planning department. We got to get on their agenda, or is there going to be a senior planner sitting right here that we talk to?
That is the intent.
Right now, we report to the board, I guess. If we have to go to something, we got to go to the board. Do we now have to say, okay, let's submit this to the planning department? So that's not going to change.
No, that's not the intent. The intent would be is that the planning department staff would support Parks and Rec.
But our recommendations, the recommendations from this body would go still to the county commission, not first through.
Correct.
um,
We'd see a different support person.
You'd see a different support person. Correct.
And I know everybody knows my background, but when I spent those years with Grand Traverse County, I was the facilities manager, and I worked real close with Parks and Rec to work on a civic center and all their parks and all that. And we don't have that in this county. We don't have anybody that can even write a spec that we got to do. And Laurel does a good job in boilerplating the old ones and stuff. But some of them, I don't know. I can look through this and it's 23 pages just to go out to put a ladder in sometimes. But I think that's where there's a deficient. Now, can we go to the planning department and say, hey, we don't have anybody that can write this spec. Who's going to write it? Are they or is one of us?
Well, the planning commission typically has had experience, the planning department has typically had experience with grant writing,
Grants are good.
with, with a variety of different things. They take care of things like monumentation, a lot of other things, so there's a skill set there. This obviously is something new.
It's a good idea, I think.
Positions that are vacant that allow for us to have this dialogue about, does this make sense structurally for the organization?
Am I clear that you're not asking, or it isn't structured such that this group has to pass on a recommendation to approve this? Or you're not asking for that kind of thing, or action by this group?
At this point, I think that there's still some things to work out. I just wanted to inform Parks and Rec that this is an option that I would like to pursue with the Parks and Rec Commission. We obviously have invited participation to sit in on the interviews for the planning director with an acknowledgement that there may be an opportunity to provide ongoing support through the planning department.
Well, I think it's worth looking into, and of course, you and your commissioners are the ones that's got to make the decision and not us. I guess I don't see anything negative in it. Laurel's a pretty big seat to fill. Wait a minute, that didn't sound right.
Shoot.
Excuse that one, but that's it's a difficult position to fill with all her background and stuff.
My experience has been over my, whatever it is, 7 or 8 years on this body, the planning office has had some of the kinds of experience that I've lacked at times that's been helpful, already having, as you said, some applicable skill set. So I'm feeling more and more like an outsider right at the moment, but I like what John has just said, that I think it's a real good idea to explore.
Thank you. Okay, we'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Under item 5 on the agenda, any other comment from commission here? John?
This potential appointment and stuff and these vacancies, like when you're leaving, I'm not sure, Laurel, why there's somebody on the road commission that has to be on this. Now, I'm going to continue with that. The dam authority was run for 20 years. And when we got these road commissioners on there, half of them didn't care if they'd been there, and the other half couldn't do anything. And that was a good decision to possibly break some of that up. and you don't necessarily have to have it run by the road commission. Is it a requirement by law that a road commissioner be here? Because I might not be here in a couple of years, and I don't know anybody on there that's got the enthusiasm. Their enthusiasm is running a road commission. If we want to put a culvert in at Veronica Valley, you can go to the road commission and ask them. So if I left tomorrow, is there a law that says in the books?
I think the rules, I think, might dictate that because the way it's set up is planning commission representative, road commission rep, and a couple of commissioner appointees, as well as some drain commissioner. I think when you got in, I can check the MCL and send it out to everybody. However, a parks commission is set up differently from a parks committee. And long ago, you probably were a park committee.
We were a
and you
committee.
transitioned to a commission.
When we
And
became,
that's what brought this
yes,
into effect.
that's exactly right.
But I will pull up the MCL.
Yeah,
That's
because on the
state
dam
law.
authority, there is a state regulation and stuff that says you'll have a person from this, and one of them will be a road commissioner, I think. Well, you're required to be on it.
Yeah.
And you're required to be on these, but I don't know if there's a Michigan common law that requires a road commissioner. So
My
I'm just
understanding-
bringing it up. I'm not going to go pros and
My
not, but
understanding,
Fairly certain it is, but I
Yeah.
don't know.
the makeup wasn't arbitrary.
for the dam authority.
No,
No,
for
for
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
to be a commission and not a committee.
Right.
It used to be just a committee, and I don't want to say just a committee. It was a good committee, it was a big committee. It was like 14 people committee. But when it became a commission, to be a commission, which was for the purpose of going for DNR grants and that sort of thing, that's when these categories became.
There may be some very enthusiastic people with the 4,000 people we got in this county that would be better off sitting on this board than a guy that doesn't care to be on the board. Right now, I like being on it, and there's a lot of work I've done on it, but I'm not going to be here forever. So that is the only reason I brought it up. There could be a lot of other applicants that could fill this. So you're going to do your homework and get back with us. All right. End the speech.
What is that you're saying, the M?
Michigan compiled laws, the state statutes.
Compiled laws,
Mhm.
and then state statutes. I'll email you.
Any other point under number 5 before we move on to park committee reports?
Beat that up.
Well, I'm glad for the update, Deb. To be associated a little more closely with planning, I think would be a big boost for this group, especially with a nod toward grant writing. I think garnering someone from the commission that has a little bent toward maybe putting some energy into grant writing could rub elbows over at the planning department and maybe up their game a little bit, and we might get a little more production that way. Unless we get a flat-out grant writer for the county, which might be in the future, but I think it's a real step in the right direction. I appreciate the thinking outside the box to get us to that point, and thank you.
If I may, just add one more thing.
Please.
Before Trudy left, she did apply for a CDBG grant for a grant writer. We had applied first and it was denied, and so we did put in for a second application. So we're still waiting to hear about that. We're not certain since we were denied first one time, not sure, but we changed a couple things in the application, and so we're remaining hopeful. But I would keep you all posted with that as well. We do have expertise here in the county for grant writing. Like I said, some of these that we've talked about are not that complicated, but there are other grants that I know planning has done in the past, and that would be certainly something that we're looking at. For this position is somebody that has some of that knowledge.
All satisfied on?
Yep.
Number 5, okay, let's move on to committee reports. Miles Kimmerly?
Miles Kimberly, we have not met recently, but you have in front of you, thanks to Laurel, this graphic of the second phase of the conceptual plan that we're working on for the master plan for Miles Kimberly Park. And we're going to meet as a committee and talk about this, try to refine it. and subsequently get some public input into where we go from there. And that's about all I have to say about it right now, unless there are any questions.
Do we have a date for that?
No, we're waiting for John Aarons to show up, and then I was going to talk to the two of you and
Yeah.
John. He's not here, but the three of us can talk
Let's try
before
to set a date
when the
before
meeting's
we-
over, and then we'll let John know.
I think that'd be great.
Maybe a
Before we
couple
leave
days.
today, we're gonna
Yeah.
do that? Okay, great.
No questions? Thank you, that's all.
Old Settlers?
Um, The three main items we had going were the parking enhancements or improvements, and that has been completed. All the gravel's down. We did include a small area for a couple parking spaces for where the porta potties are usually located for the picnic. So people can actually, we may have to decide whether we want to permanently put porta potties there on a permanent basis as opposed to only bringing them in for the picnic. That'll be a committee decision to be brought forward in the future. The electrical work is done as of this week, restoring the electricity to the gazebo. And that's really the main things we had for the rest of this year to just to get this request for proposal out for the gazebo work for next year. I understand the budget has been approved, and although I haven't seen it, I don't know how much is in the budget for us next year.
Same as last year.
But there's also the proposal to roll forward the 55,000 from this year, which would end up with 110,000 total next year if it all rolls
Well,
forward.
sorry, more like, I'm guessing 52,000.
But somewhere around 100,
Yes,
110.
yes.
The concept of a roll forward is magnificent. Hopefully that happens.
However, bringing up one other subject, our current master plan for all the parks ends at the end of next year, 2024. We need to get started on developing the new master plan, the one for 25 through 29. So I'm saying that because the administrator's here. We need to get a timeline going and actually probably get that kicked off sooner than later.
Yeah, from past experience, I would say you're absolutely right, Charlie, and therefore, if this plan goes through with the planning department, that would be some immediate communication that would need to
We'll end up on
start
a
happening.
crunch time frame to get it finished by the end of the year.
Yeah.
My experience with these things is they can take 2 years to do.
Last go, we were approaching some work in Veronica with Gosling, and at some point during that, realized that we were at the deadline instead of a year ahead of the
Yep.
5-year plan.
Plan.
The last 5-year plan was
So that
done
morphed into
very quickly.
Gosling continuing on with our recommendation to be a part of and key player in putting that last plan together. So Gosling was our go-to and the company that we paid to have us, or we paid to have do the 5-year plan. So that's how the last one happened. The person that was the main push at Gosling is retired. So we have a new guy that's worked on this plan. So as we go into the new year, that'll be a discussion as to where we go for expertise to help us with that.
Just a friendly reminder, this board is quite adamant that things go up the bidding process. So you cannot think that it's a definite go with one process.
Yeah, it went through a bidding process,
And one
especially
thing-
if it's more than,
One thing that's very important when we draft this is that we get a document in whatever format is used, so that if we have to reformat down the road, it's just a quick opening up a Word doc or publisher file and making some corrections.
Currently, we have no editable
Just a
document
PDF.
for the master plan. I mean,
and we
I
can't.
got my Adobe Pro on my computer. I could probably edit it, but.
guess we're on to Veronica Valley. Pretty much I've presented what's important there. Next year, there's going to be the weed issue, addressing the MMRA recommendations. I'll remind you that if the beaver should return and be problems again, yeah, he will. At some point, yes, and maybe a whole family of them. But we are no longer, just as a reminder, and this may be something that I, again, fall into volunteering to be part of with the committee. We're not restricted to beaver season and beaver harvesting permits. We have designated that it's a nuisance in the park to lose, particularly to lose the vegetation, either through flooding or through the beavers cutting of trees. It's a real nuisance, and therefore, we can have a trapper in there at any time of the year to take care of that nuisance. Trapper Ron, whom we've worked with before, is probably in this local area the #1 trapper that the DNR would recommend that we work with, so that relationship continues. Ron has not, I actually mistakenly contacted him next week. We had a brief talk. He has not yet seen a return of the beaver, but I think Charlie's right. That will be an issue that pops up for Veronica once again.
That and the groundhogs.
And that's really all I have from Veronica. Laurel, I'm not sure what item 7 is about.
I just wanted to update you on next year's documentation for your organizational and your regular session, which will be held that first Wednesday of January. Now, we don't have all the members here, but I'll be sending out an email to everyone. If you're comfortable with doing that first Wednesday, are you comfortable with doing it 3:15? Do you want to change the day of the month? Do you want to change the time of the month? These are all things to consider. I want to make sure we try to aim for 100% availability of everyone who have had trouble getting your agreement.
Is that January, am I remembering correctly, Laurel, that the January meetings for the group is actually 2 sessions? I mean, you have to open one meeting?
Organization will take like 10, 15 minutes and then
But
And
it's
then
the same day, was that your question? We usually do it
Yeah.
15 minutes ahead of the,
And one of
So
the
it's not
items
2
is the
meetings.
review of the bylaws, right?
Yep.
So, drag out your bylaws so you can review them before the meeting.
It does seem like we've had trouble getting a quorum with this group, so I think a good, honest discussion about possibly changing the date or time or whatever. And everybody needs to be honest, because, yeah, Laurel has been, I think you've emailed every single month, haven't you, to get a quorum?
Yeah,
That's not,
it's kind of a trickle down. If someone says, hey, I forgot to tell you, then that generates a form message and then,
yeah, but that,
oh, yeah, I can't make it either. So,
but we don't want to pass that on to the next person taking it. Laurel's been great, but I think we need to have an honest discussion about the priority this group has and where it fits into our schedules best, so.
Have we had to cancel for non-quorum?
not in this year.
not in a long time.
Last year.
I think that the timing as far as in the month worked out well this year.
It didn't work out.
Albeit we didn't get a whole lot accomplished per se as far as spending money. Part of the reason is this and how long it took. But the idea was to be ahead of the county board meeting in that time frame, and that's why the time of the month was taken, and I feel that that was a good thing.
Was.
why wasn't it? Kevin?
Well, I didn't feel like we brought anything from this to the commission. I really don't feel like anything that we discussed ended up at the executive meeting. I don't know,
We didn't have anything.
we didn't have anything, so I don't know if the timing is that critical
Didn't
for
we have
this,
your,
but
wasn't your culvert this year? Wasn't that last spring? That came to the commission.
Culvert.
The culvert,
And the driveway,
the driveway, yes.
and the
approaches. Yep.
Right.
But those were the only things we spent money on.
Kids
that
Fish Day came to us.
Tractors.
The
Anything
plan,
that's
the
coming-
tractor.
Anything that's coming through the commission has the potential of getting to the county board of commissioners from our vote to that vote. So we're set up to save a month just by meeting the day we're meeting. That's why we're doing it.
And
Not necessarily did it go really great this year,
yeah,
but if we need to move on something, we have the potential of getting it to the county board of commissioners this month, and we don't lose a month. And that's been an issue in the past, so that's why it got changed. I thought that was a good idea, but I don't know.
So why was but the executive was moved this month?
About the fourth Wednesday of the month, as long as you're still ahead of the queue. If it's the fourth Wednesday, then it's before you start planning for executive.
We used to be, what, the third Wednesday?
used to be.
Well,
Mhm.
in that format, we would cancel December, which we did. We didn't meet in December.
Yeah.
That's Deb.
I would just ask that before you set a final meeting, that we determine what the structure's gonna be, because obviously there are already set meetings within planning that we'll have to take into consideration. So perhaps we will create a calendar that has current meeting dates and projected meeting dates for next year, so that we can make an informed decision and not overlap. Create.
We can get the first one going, all right? That's where you were heading, right?
Yeah.
That's-
Approve that at the beginning of this year.
And so we'd have an organizational and a meeting, back to back.
That is already posted,
For January 3rd.
yes.
So we can get to that point, and by the time we have the other information,
It's not,
We
then
could-
that meeting does not seem to be a conflict.
I mean, right now, we have some flexibility for when we schedule our Parks Committee meetings, but Laurel attends all of those. So that may get us a little bit more stringent, that we have to be in discipline about how and when we schedule the individual park committee meetings.
And part of that, from my own past experience, is paying attention to what Steve was referring. Having the committee meetings, and the schedule of this group coordinated with, somewhat based upon, being ready then quickly to make our recommendations onto the executive commission and then the full county commission. So all of that scheduling does have to be looked at and
I've been
dovetailed.
trying to do our committee meeting immediately before this meeting. So if we have something come out of that meeting that needs to be approved by the Parks and Rec Commission, that I can do it at this meeting, and then I'm only getting people having to drive out here once.
Yeah, we've competed with getting the, the date and the time and the person for the committee meeting as well as Don. We've all become aware of that.
So we need 3 meeting rooms.
In 3 minutes.
No, then we need 3 Laurels.
So do I.
Okay.
You will be missed.
Anything further from us on item 7? Okay, we're moving on. Public comment, additional public comments. Seeing none, I will open it for commissioner comments. And again, just a reminder, this is comment period, not full discussion. So, any further comments?
Thank you for serving all these years and doing very well for Veronica Valley. You've moved a lot of things forward. I think you should do a little checklist. I know all your native plannings and all those things. Thank you for those. And thank you for your promise that you will continue to volunteer for that park.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
it's a tough decision. I hate leaving you in the lurch in that sense, but I won't. So, thank you. Thank you.
Steve is sad.
Yeah, well, I didn't do nothing myself without help.
oh, come on.
You tolerated.
Don, you got anything?
Not yet.
Not
One
yet.
year.
I'll,
You and I both.
Yeah, yeah, I'll double that.
Oh, I want to thank Laurel. I mean, she's been my go-to person all year. This is my first year serving as a committee chairperson. And, you know, there's a lot of process questions that come up that you need to get answers on, and she's been able to provide all of them. So thank you very much for your help.
I'll ditto that, although I've also already told Laurel how much she's meant to me. I just had to learn so much, whatever it was, 8 years ago, about process, and Laurel's been my guide. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
She will be missed.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I'll double that too.
I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
You ain't come around to me yet.
Oh, I didn't see. I see out of the
Are you
right side
done?
of my head.
I'm good, I'm done.
I have three things. I'm gonna ditto or triple what everybody said. Laurel, and I've worked with you on a lot of other things other than this, but, thank you for your time and for yours. The second thing, I want to mention what Steve did. Steve's twice asked us to look at our mission, and I don't know how we can make sure it's on another agenda, or should we wait to see what falls out over here, but, this is a Parks and Rec Commission, Parks and Recreation. So I would just like us to look at it and either put his comment to bed or change it. The third thing, these get the hair that stands up on my back, is that when we go out for a proposal, 20 pages long. Now, we had a real good I'm gonna go back to that
My
culvert.
scope of service was 1 page.
Was that?
My scope of service that created this was 1 page.
I'll go back to that culvert. This is only gonna be this public comment, I'm cut off at 3 minutes. But, when we put that culvert in, and we had good engineering estimates, and we had people come out, and it was about, I don't know, 15 to 16,000. It came in at 22 or 20, and I worked with these people. And you look at it, and a lot of it comes because of this. I'll give you some example. The person shall only provide a full-time employee. Well, that doesn't happen. If you're gonna put up a gazebo, I might just get Joe Blow down the road, and he's just gonna do it for a week. But this says you gotta have a full-time. And the guy has to have 3 years' experience. And we did a ladder one time, I think, for the dam authority and stuff. And that guy's a good contractor and stuff and whatever, but that welder didn't have 3 years' experience. He just got out of school. Then you gotta furnish documentation that he has. Now, first he asked for it, now you gotta have, this kind of stuff stinks. And, now you gotta have a resume for everybody that works on this job of putting in that ladder on the thing. And so when this company that put in that culvert has to dig up all these resumes, and we never even looked at that stuff. That's the end of my speech. Some of this stuff needs to be changed.
We went out for bids for the electrical work downstairs. And I have a lot of friends in the business, and they all complain, we're not doing any work for Leelanau County because of that.
Correct.
How many bids did you get?
Now, this is my last statement. We spend, I don't know, over $8 or $9 million a year on a road commission, and we can go out for bids on that stuff, and we look at the person, and we look at the contractor, and I gotta give some credit to the guy that's looking at them and putting this stuff in. We can change a door out in a week. It might cost us $5 or $10 grand, but you got your standard, $1 million limits and all this other kind of stuff. That's standard. They all submit that. And we look at it, and we're gonna go out and we're gonna do it. It doesn't take 3 months, and it doesn't take 22 pages to change a door and something. And whether it comes from the commissioners or wherever. And I know I'm looking at you.
You are, you're making me
But
nervous.
this cost us money. And we lost about 10 grand putting that darn culvert in at Veronica Valley. In the speech, boy, I'm all fired up now. And I'm glad you called on me.
I will now entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.
No, fire it up.
I wish I could go for a beer with you right now.
We
I
can go
got it.
have 6.
I think keep the three of us can decide and let John know.
Right.